We have big news out of Toronto today with the Maple Leafs placing a couple of key players on waivers, and we also have another signing to discuss and a potential retirement. We'll discuss all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we had some pretty significant news on the waiver wire involving the Toronto Maple Leafs today. They announced earlier that players Jason Spezza and Aaron Dell have both been placed on waivers for the purpose of being assigned to their taxi squad, which is essentially really just kind of like salary cap hurdles that they're jumping through here. They did have the unfortunate incident of having youngster Nick Robertson be injured in their last game the other night against the Ottawa Senators, injured his knee. Looks like he's going to be out for a bit of time. They need to move some players around. And like I said, this is really just hurdles they're jumping through due to salary cap purposes. It's not like they really want to move on from either player. But reality is that either player would be an attractive option for other teams and could certainly be claimed. Now, in a couple of statements here that we found earlier today between Jason Spezza and his agent, it sounds like if another team wants to put in a claim on him, he's decided he will not report to their team and will essentially just call it quits. So essentially, Spezza would say he was done if another team wants to claim his contract. So he only has a desire to play for his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs here for the last little bit of his career. And that's where things stand. So I would think that more than likely that will probably scare teams off from putting in a claim. What's the point of wasting a claim if you know there's no chance he's going to come and play for you? Because that's why you would do it. I mean, looking at their roster, really besides Spezza, the only other player that's been lower for ice time amongst the forwards would be Barabanov when he's been in the lineup, and he doesn't need waivers to go to the taxi squad. But Spezza's played anywhere from like 7.5, 8 minutes or so per game. He's been extremely efficient on faceoffs. Like, for example, in the game against the Senators last night, he was 10 for 10. So, being a very efficient faceoff guy is proven valuable for the Leafs. I've seen many shifts here in their first 3 games of the season where he was on for a faceoff and went for a quick change. So his ice time's not adding up to a whole lot, but he's certainly serving a purpose, being extremely efficient that way. So I really don't think they want to lose that, but at the same time, they don't really have a lot of other options that they can do right now. One thing that would help would be if they could maybe find a way to move the contract of Pierre Engvall. I mean, obviously we know Engvall came up from the minors last year, had a good start, and then he got signed to an extension, in my opinion, a little bit too quick. And now he's kind of fallen out of favor. They want to put him back to the minors, but because of his contract, the full amount, it cannot be buried. It can get over just $1 million. It's a hair over $1 million that they're allowed to bury per player that way, and his contract is a couple $100,000 more than that. So that little bit of difference that still counts against their cap is having a pretty big impact right now. If that wasn't there, that would save at least one of these guys from having to go through the waiver wire, which I assume, I'm not sure what they would decide in that sense, but either way, it would make things a little bit less complicated. So we'll see what happens. Now, in the case of Aaron Dell, there's teams out there that need goaltending. We don't really know how he's going to play this year because he hasn't seen any action yet. Last year and really the last couple of years in San Jose, his play there has been inconsistent, to put it mildly, which is why the Sharks didn't attempt to re-sign him. They thought it was best to move on. So we'll see what happens with Dell or Spezza. I would think, like I said, because of the comments Spezza's made, he probably won't be claimed unless the team wants to try it. But even if a team does claim him and he says, no, I will not report, in order to terminate his contract, they would put him through the waiver wire again, and the Leafs could claim him back in that regard. So it is possible that could go, or if, let's say, the Leafs didn't claim him, he could have his contract terminated and then later re-sign with him if they were interested in doing it that way. So there's certainly plenty of other means to get around this for him to still remain with Toronto and get through this process while they kind of said jump through cap hurdles. But Dell is likely going to be claimed, would be my guess. They've been carrying him as the third goaltender on the roster instead of doing this before because they were concerned about losing him. I think a team like Edmonton comes to mind, but obviously there's plenty of teams ahead of Edmonton in the waiver pecking order. Because we're still early in the season, last year's standings will be the order that they go by when it comes to making a waiver claim. So Obviously, the Oilers are down there quite a ways, so they'd have to get through a lot of other teams not putting in a claim from them to make to get out to be successfully claimed. But still, the Edmonton's the one team that comes to mind, but there are others out there that are still kind of struggling and searching for that number 3 guy, especially. So the Leafs are going to be down a guy more than likely in that regard. But we'll see what happens here. Now, in other waivers news, Ritchie also was put through the waiver wire because he's getting a contract. So he's another player that went to camp with the Flames on a PTO. He's getting a 1-year deal. It's a 2-way deal, $700K at the NHL level. So he's going through waivers and likely will be assigned to their taxi squad. We've seen in a much higher percentage of PTOs get converted to actual contracts this year. Normally it's around maybe 20% or so of PTOs get converted to actual NHL contracts. This year it's significantly higher. I believe we're around like the 60% mark, but that's largely due to the fact that they're allowed to have expanded rosters and then taxi squads, so there's more jobs, and a lot of these deals are 2-way deals as well. But still, Ritchie goes through waivers and will then be assigned to the Flames taxi squad. And speaking of goaltending, apparently Jimmy Howard, longtime goalie for the Red Wings, who remains unsigned right now, is looking like he's going to be announcing his retirement here in the coming days. Apparently, longtime Red Wings GM, current GM of the Oilers, Ken Holland, had reached out to Jimmy Howard. He's one of the few free agent goaltenders with any amount of experience that are still available. And obviously the Oilers, after losing Anton Forsberg, have been kind of scrambling to find a more experienced number 3 goaltender. Apparently Holland did reach out to him, and he indicated that he's already kind of gotten used to life outside of hockey, having more time for family, coaching his kids, that kind of stuff, and that he's essentially done and more likely going to be announcing his retirement here sometime in short order. So Jimmy Howard appears to be done in the NHL. With this waivers news, we won't know until noon Eastern time tomorrow if there are any claims. So of course, at that point, we'll have an update and we can discuss further what's going to happen. But essentially, like I said, the Leafs and other teams, some of them are just so handcuffed here by the salary cap that they're having to make some additional moves and waiver stuff here that they don't really want to have to do. But it's essential right now in order to find the necessary space and to juggle the roster around. So will we see any claims? I do think it's quite possible, and we'll be back tomorrow with some updates in that regard. Let me know your thoughts on where these players could go, and what are your thoughts on the Spezza situation, especially if he is claimed. Do you think he would just call or quits and retire, and maybe the Leafs won't bother to bring him back? It's difficult to say. I mean, I know they seem to value him, but they can only carry so many players. So let me know your thoughts down below, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.